Wednesday for February 15th. We are actually, a lot of us core maintainers are actually in a room here, hence you can maybe able to see the webcam down there in a different input, but we have Bailey, Aishwarya, Connor, Patrick, Dan, Liam, Taylor, Roman, myself, and Lachlan, a bunch of the Cosmonic team here in a room. So we are going to be, we're going to be kind of having a fun time popcorning around the room for any audio things. But without further ado, we can go ahead and get started with the agenda, which is we have a pretty short agenda, but I have a feeling that we'll have some fun discussion. I have a little demo for wasmCloud dev containers. So I hadn't heard about dev containers before. I did a little bit of research after GitHub Codespaces came out, because that seemed like a pretty sweet way to do like a online developer environment that is reproducible, has the command line tools and language tool chains all installed for you. And that seems like a pretty sweet thing to be able to do, especially when you're evaluating a new project for the first time and you want to try and work on something without installing a bunch of tools locally on your machine. So I'm going to go ahead and share. I put in two PRs, one for the WASH repository and one for wasmCloud OTP, just a very simple dev container. This is actually the first time that I read the documentation and set these up. So I'm totally happy to take some constructive feedback on ways that we can do this better or ways to improve this experience. But if you haven't heard of the concept of a dev container before, the way I essentially understand it is you set up a single container that you can run and develop inside of the container instead of developing on your local machine. So when you look at this, let me change this really quick. When you look at what a dev container actually looks like, it's really just this one JSON file that specifies a base image for your container. And then, a couple of options that are very similar to Docker options, like the dev container for WASH just mounts the local folder into the container under /wash, so that if you're developing locally on your machine, you develop in a container, you still have access to all of your changes on your local machine. You don't lose that when you close the container, for example. But the big piece of dev containers is this set of features. And I think Stephen, who is on the call, actually introduced this concept to me, and it might have been in the guise of dev containers. But essentially, these are layers or features that you add into your container. So for the WASH dev container, for example, we have one feature, and that's just a Rust toolchain. So when you build this dev container, it installs Rust into this toolchain into this container on top of a Debian Bullseye image. And then we mount the source code into the container, and then you can develop as normal, and you already have a Rust toolchain installed. So what this actually looks like, you do have to have the dev container CLI, and I haven't experimented too much with this. You can just do it straight from GitHub Codespaces. Would love if anybody else has tried that to talk more about that process. But with the dev container CLI, you can run dev container build to actually create this image. Or kind of the thing that does all of the steps for you and makes it really easy is this dev container open step right at the root of the WASH repository. What this does is opens up a VS Code environment that's essentially like a remote code environment that starts the container, builds it if necessary, and drops you right into the file system onto that container. So the terminal here is actually running in a Docker container. And if I run cargo build, this is the first thing that anybody would do right when they get into the project. There's already a Rust target installed, and I've already kind of tested this before. Since you're just mounting the file system in, the cargo build finishes right away. I already have, the Linux targets installed. So this is pretty sweet because you don't actually need much other than VS Code, and you can get right into an environment where you can develop on a new project, even if you don't have the Rust toolchain installed locally. Now, this is a pretty simple example. There's not too much going on with this. It's just a Rust toolchain, and that's not too much to set up locally. But another one that we have is the wasmCloud OTP dev container. This is another PR that I put in pretty recently. And if we look at this dev container, there's a little bit more going on. So there's actually I'm using just a Debian base. This is pretty standard. It installs the latest version of Rust. It installs a specific version of Elixir and Erlang, just something, this is just what I had on my local machine. So I knew that it was going to be like compatible versions. And then it also installs a custom feature, which I created in this pull request as well. Now, this custom feature will download NATs for you and then make sure that everything is set up properly in your path for Elixir and Erlang, and then install 1 or 2 Elixir tools that you have to set up manually. So creating your own feature I found really accessible, since it's essentially just running a bash script. You can really easily script this. When you build the container, this feature essentially runs after installing Rust and Elixir. So when you go to the wasmCloud OTP lab repository and use this dev container, you get dropped right into a container environment that has Rust, Elixir, NATs, all of the tools that you need to develop with wasmCloud installed. And, the first time that you run this, it may take 5 to 10 minutes to actually build the container. But this is really easily remediated by, a lot of people, what they do is they take their dev container, they build it, and then they publish it to GitHub packages, so that when you run for the first time, you don't actually have to run through that build step, which is really useful for things that take a little bit of time. So, even if I didn't have anything installed on my local machine, I could come right in, go into the host core project and run mix-compile to compile the entire wasmCloud project. So this is pretty sweet. I'm really interested. This was something that I wanted to learn more about just with the new addition of GitHub code spaces. But I think the downsides of trying to adopt, like developing in a container, are pretty quickly overrun by the benefits that you can get for not installing some tooling on your local machine, and the ability for somebody to just drop right into a setup developer environment. And I could actually see this being really useful for our wasmCloud examples as well. So like getting into and starting like the Echo actor, you could drop right into a dev container that has all these assets downloaded locally. It has Wash installed, has wasmCloud installed, and maybe a README or a script that you can just run right through. So we may experiment a little bit with that. Stephen actually dropped a good comment in the chat that Bailey has pretty sweet experience with dev containers as well. She's written a couple of things for the general WebAssembly and for wasmCloud. Actually, Bailey, do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I'm just gonna stand over you.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. I'm having slow Wi-Fi every day, so it's easier for me to see video this way. I am trying to fold some of my experiments that you can find over on Ricochet. I'll post a link in there, but mine were based off of Steven, so I'm not even gonna like Steven did awesome work there. What I wanted to do was break it down into individual features for all the different pieces that you need for WASM. And in the Bytecode Alliance GitHub organization, we've got a lot of different SDKs that we're building, especially around the component model work. And what we want is to have a spot where you basically have a last known good, basically a snapshot across all these different projects that you get a container, it's got the right SHAs, and it just works. So that's some of the work that I'm driving right now. I don't have anything to show like Brooks. He was very productive on the airplane. I doodled. So yeah, we'll expect to hear more about that soon.
So Stephen, you're kind of the ubiquitous inspiration here for some of us to play with dev containers. Is there anything that you'd like to, not to totally put you on the spot, but I will. Is there anything that you want to say about your experience playing with them? Do you have your own kind of custom dev containers that you use on a regular basis?
I have one that I built that was meant for like a Rust and WASM web app development environment. I opened it today and realized that I had added a clean step and didn't take ownership of some cargo files. So I guess the big caveat for anyone working with dev containers and Rust would be if you're running any cargo commands, make sure that you take ownership of anything related to cargo and any CI steps. Because if you don't, you're going to get these weird errors called spurious network errors. And it sounds like a network error, but it's a permission error, and cargo just can't access its own directories. So I put a link for that CI in the chat. If your image takes like 30 minutes to build, what you can do is just create a GitHub workflow, and anytime you're pushing some changes, it'll build in GitHub Actions, and you can just pull the built image into your dev container. So rather than referencing like base of Debian, Buster, or whatever it is, you can reference the image you built, and rather than the 30 minutes of build time for someone, it might be 2 to 3 minutes just to download it and you're up and running. So that one was pretty cool.
So this is a way that you can take a built dev container and use it to run a GitHub action, like not on like Ubuntu latest, you would run it in the dev container.
You can build the GitHub, you can build the dev container in GitHub Actions.
And
Okay.
it's pre-built. So right now, when you go and get your dev container, it's Rust based, and so the compile is pretty slow. It's pulling in all your dependencies. Not so bad for the library that you were showing, but for a lot of applications that can be 2 to 5 minutes.
Yeah.
If you do a pre-build and you supply that, it's already built. Like all that's already there. It's a larger image, right? So there's a downside for that. But if those certain parts aren't changing, or you just set it up to do it like say nightly, saves you a ton of time.
Yeah, like the second you add something like cargo watch or trunk or homebrew, even, that's another 5-10 minutes on build time. So it gets pretty frustrating for people sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, that totally makes sense. I mean, the reproducible dev environment, I feel like loses a little bit of its value if we spend, if you spend the whole time building the dev environment anyways. So, for this to be really accessible and get the full benefit, I think we would want to publish this image. Ooh, I'm going to share this on the screen, Bailey, if you don't mind. The Bailey just sent her wasmCloud dev container feed. What kind of features do you have in here?
Drill in, go into the source. So I kind of did similar to you. I wanted one for NAS, I wanted one for Rust. I wanted the WASI SDK was the most important thing to me, like trying to get the bytecode aligned SDKs fine grained out, because I'm expecting some breaking changes basically coming with all kinds of good stuff, but I wanted those to be able to have their own SHA that I pull in, and not just one big monolithic thing and that's why that I'm able to use the fine grained features of dev containers.
Okay, that's really cool. And sorry, I tried to pin Bailey's actual video to the screen, but I think you were just looking at me talking as Bailey. So I'll take the credit, whatever. All right. Well, let's see. Oh, Oren had a question. What's the SHA associated with?
Yeah, so with containers, one of the big downsides with them is that you're pulling in each layer, and each one of those layers includes different tools, starting from the operating systems all the way to, like, say, your Rust crates. And those crates, each one, you would prefer to have a reproducible build. There are a lot of amazing tools for that, like, say, Nix or Bazel. I didn't use those here. Instead, what I did is I pinned to the Git SHA of whatever tool I was using. And so there's a lot of those, I guess. The one that I set up was just my PR where I was hacking around. I was having some trouble. I only had like less than 3 days right before the holiday break where I was tooling around. But anyways, I hope that helps. Yeah, Bazel's cool, but I actually, Steven, I want to nerd snipe you and tell you to look at Nix first.
Nix, like NIX, yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's something that
I'd like to nerd snipe that and tell you look at GUIX first, GUIX.
GUIX. Do you have a link to that, Victor?
Yeah, I'll cut to the chase though. It's basically Nix but in Lisp.
Oh, okay. Victor, actually, I don't know if I can't remember. Have you been on a wasmCloud community call before?
Oh no, I definitely I have not. I've watched them. That's it.
Okay. Well, we're getting into nerd snipe territory where we're probably transitioning to the next topic. We usually like to do new community like introductions at the beginning, but I missed it. Would you like to do an intro, Victor?
Yeah, sure. Hey everyone, my name is Victor. I guess I'll put my video on. Oh. Hey everybody. Yeah, I recently joined Cosmonic to try and help and work on stuff all around, still getting up to speed on everything. Pretty excited about WASM in general. I like infrastructure, I like Rust, I like Haskell, I like TypeScript. Those are my favorites. And yeah, I work on lots of things and lots of little projects, but really excited to try and make WASM sort of go. I do think it's the future, and I think a lot of people on this call and people watching this call are really early, and there's a lot that can go right, and so I'm kind of excited to help that happen.
Can I ask a dumb question?
You can ask a dumb
Yeah.
question.
What? Not. It's not just for you, Victor. It's for everybody. What is Nix? You have it on your phone, Roman.
I do. Yeah.
You have it on your phone. We have a community member, Z, that talks about Nix all the time. I don't know what Nix is, and at this point, I'm too afraid to ask.
So
What? Afraid.
one might say is a package manager, but I would say it is not a package manager. What I would say it is a generic build tool. It's cross-platform. It works on Linux, works on Mac, actually different architectures, and it's just a tool you can use to reproducibly build declaratively, build applications, packages, OCI images, AMIs, a whole like NixOS is an example output of a Nix build, so you can build actual declarative OS using Nix.
Okay.
But it's really just a way to build things.
So does it let me, when you say declarative, it lets me pin like specific versions of things, like
Yes.
packages, libraries, libc, all the things?
Yeah. So with Nix, you get actually source code references, not binary references. Like I actually sometimes when I introduce people to Nix, if I know Docker, for example, I make analogies. It's kind of like Docker, right? But with Docker, you can build an image and you can run that image. You can do something similar with Nix, like you have this store, which is certainly a Merkle tree kind of store, and then yeah, like recently in Nix we had this idea of flakes, where basically you get a flake lock, where anything that any input to your build is encoded in that lock. Right, so you have this whole Merkle tree state in that one lock, and you can audit that thing, right? You can audit the glibc, which was used to, build the Rust toolchain, for example. The source code, everything is there. So that's essentially an SBOM kind of thing.
Got it. Okay. All right. That's really cool. Thank you.
Well, Roman, I think you made your debut doing an awesome introduction of Nix. Do you want to introduce yourself actually, since this is your first community call, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so I actually just joined Cosmonic. In fact, I think I'm officially starting the week or next week.
You're starting.
I guess I just started. Yeah, but yeah, so I recently worked at Profin and before at Docker, and before I was in IoT. I'm a fan of Nix, as you probably already understood. So actually, it's something I use for 7 years now. So it's technology I'm very excited about. But WebAssembly is another technology that I'm also extremely excited about. So yeah, very happy to be here. Hopefully, do good stuff together. So yeah.
I linked Roman's talk in the chat. So
Oh, thank you.
we just got an overview from an expert. Great.
Yeah, and kind of fun note, we do have a Nix Flake. I think it's a Flake for Wash. So you can install Wash using Nix. It was a community member that swung through maybe about a year ago and said, hey, this would be cool if you had a Nix Flake. And we're like, I don't know what that means. And then they opened a PR and added one for us, which is pretty that's pretty neat. It's something that is on like that never-ending list of, hey, we'd love to try this out once I have the abundance of time and a available Linux machine to try with. All right, well, that was kind of an amalgam of demo, Nick's explanations, introductions, all the things, but it was pretty fun. That was all that I had for the demo, and actually, I didn't have any other planned discussion topics for the call. Liam, I know you wanted to do a little bit of maybe a rundown on conferences.
Yeah, always. We've got 3 great conferences coming up in the next few weeks. I don't know if you can pull up web pages, Brooks. We've got wasmIO in Barcelona, where you can see our own Bailey Hayes speaking about wasmCloud. The agenda's posted. It's going to be awesome. We've been working with the team behind wasmIO for a few months now, and really helping them plan. Cosmonic actually sponsored the conference. We'll be putting on a wasmCloud workshop while we're there in Barcelona. And if you're a European-based team, feel free to reach out via the wasmCloud slack.wasmcloud.com, or on Twitter, and we're more than happy to discuss doing an event in your city while we've got folks over there. Secondly, CFP just closed for wasmCloud, Cloud Native WASM Day, in association with KubeCon EU, which is in Amsterdam. We had an awesome amount of talks. I don't know how we're going to pick a schedule from this, but we're going to try to get that done in the next 2 weeks. We've got somewhere around 50 submissions, so I'm super excited to dive in and dig into some of those. I saw a whole bunch of names I recognize in there, and a whole bunch, even more powerful, a whole bunch of names I don't recognize. So that'll be phenomenal. And planning is well underway for the WASM Summit in London. I think it's going to be in July, and that's going to be co-located with the Bailey, which CG is going to be co-located there.
The WebAssembly community group that's through the W3C.
The WebAssembly community group, yeah, through the W3C is going to host their meeting live in London for that event. So it'll be another great opportunity to meet with not only wasmCloud and Cosmonic folks, but folks from the Bytecode Alliance, and I'm sure other companies as well, WASM enthusiasts from around the world. And then just another quick shout out, if you are a wasmCloud user and enthusiastic about wasmCloud, the Bytecode Alliance has this amazing new TSC member, Bailey Hayes, and she's kicked off a whole round of community meetings. The first community meeting was just hosted, as well as interviews and talks to help raise the profile for WebAssembly and to help get us all on the same page. So Bailey, I know we're all incredibly grateful of the both ends of the candle that you're burning right now, and we really appreciate it. You can find that linked right off the Bytecode Alliance YouTube page. Maybe somebody can get that into our chat here and on our Slack as well. Were there any other events just generally in the room, or anything anybody wanted to call out? Great. And then a few miscellaneous things coming up. We'll have those up on Twitter, but somebody from wasmCloud and Cosmonic will be at Scale 20X. Is that you, Taylor?
Yeah, me and Brooks.
Taylor and Brooks will be out at Scale 20X. And where else do we have coming up?
You got wasmIO, you got wasmIO, you got we'll be at KubeCon
Of course,
for sure.
I'll be in Nashville.
Yeah, Bailey will be in
Nashville.
Nashville for DevOps Days Nashville. I don't have that link handy, but I could find it in a second. That'll be fun. We've submitted to a few other of the smaller conferences, so we'll make sure to update everyone as soon as we have things like finalized schedules. And of course, it would actually be pretty sweet to take some of the talks and maybe repost them on on our wasmCloud blog. We'll make sure to publicize those kind of things. Aha, there it is. Justin, nice. Thanks for finding that. That was really quick. I'm not sure. Wow, the Nashville one skipped a couple of years there in the middle.
And by the way, if anyone from the community is ever presenting something wasmCloud related at all, make sure you let us know so we can shout it out here in the community call.
Yeah, we'd love to keep that on our radar.
That's all I need there. That was all.
All right, well, I think that that's all that we had on our agenda today. A little bit of a short meeting since we're all kind of in kind of planning mode. Is there anything else that anyone wanted to share? This can be wasmCloud related, like wasmCloud questions, or just general WebAssembly ecosystem related. Aha, we do have one more thing. Kevin, did you want to hop in real quick?
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to unmute. No, we were just posting in the chat a list of various talks and so on, so I figured I'd share the one from KubeCon EU.
Oops, got muted there for a second. Yeah, Kevin was actually the prestigious one of the bunch who got a talk accepted to the main conference about distributed event sourcing with wasmCloud. I think this is going to be a really exciting one. When Taylor and I did our talk about building the Cosmonic platform on wasmCloud, that one got a lot of attendees who were interested in how the technology could be used in a real world way. And our resident event sourcing expert is going to make this one pretty exciting. Thanks for pinging this, Kevin. It's kind of hard to keep track of all the conferences, to be honest. All right, I will return to my general ask. Anybody have anything else they want to talk about wasmCloud or general wasm related? Cool, then I think we'll probably just call that it for the community call today. Thanks everybody for coming. I'll stop the live stream, and everybody can just kind of hang out for a little bit, and we'll see you next week.